Hey, everybody, this is Barry Mankin here with the Holistic Home Health Podcast. We're here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I can't remember what episode this is. Myra, do you remember what episode this is? Seven. This is our seventh episode. So we've had some fun getting started here with Don Knarr from Blue Chip Restoration, and we'll kind of go over some of the overview of what it looks like from a restoration side of the business and how it affects the environment and what we're trying to achieve in a lot of different scenarios, because we'll get into, like fire, flooding, water damage, mold, a lot of different angles as it relates to home health. But the idea is we want to try to educate you and just have a really good dialogue here with Don and say, hey, how do you approach things? Don, I want to welcome you here to the podcast, and thank you so much for coming.
Barry, thanks for asking me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So why don't we start out with a history and how you got started, and just give us an overview of what you do and how you do it.
Well, I've been in the business for 22 years and got lucky, I guess. The had a rental property that had some mold problems, and took a class in Detroit, Michigan with NAMP, the National Association for Mold Professionals, and learned how to clean it up, and just thought to myself, this is something I wouldn't mind doing, and I just started doing it there and moved to Nashville, be 22 years this June.
Wow. Yeah, so we actually met through a mutual friend that I refer to as Yoda in the business. One of the top guys that kind of started the assessment side of this in Nashville, Gino Swick.
Shout out to Gino.
Shout out to Gino, Yoda. So, and you guys actually were doing classes together. So you were way in on the front end of this as well.
We actually took that class together.
Oh, that same class.
That's where we met.
Okay, yeah. So pioneers in the industry here, guys. So what I would say is the reason you're here, other than the knowledge base that you give, it's like we want to have the top people in the area. And so there's so many people that I see that advertise this, people that we run across in our environmental business that we go behind, or people just ask questions about. And there's certain philosophies that are out there that we have to hold standards to. And it's kind of like the Wild West out here. Nobody's doing it the right way as it relates to moisture and water and mold. And it's rare to find somebody from a restoration side that understands it and does it well. And you're the guy, like we refer you guys all the time because you're the top guy, restoration guy in town, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have to agree with you 100%. I think that the biggest problem that I see is I think people just don't take the time to look at the biggest picture possible. Everyone has blinders on. Everyone's in a hurry. Let me hurry up and solve this, water problem, fire problem, mold problem, and then I got to move on to the next one because the phone's ringing.
Yeah,
and not figuring that in a very short period of time the problem's just going to come back.
Right.
If you don't solve the root of the problem. So I think at the end of the day, we're all just in such a hurry, and no one really, and I think thinking is a commodity.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah. The root of the problem, I think, is the big thing that you and I share, because to your point, so many people just want that silver bullet. Let's check the box.
Yep.
We had it. The mold is killed, or those are my favorite words, or treated, or we got it dry, but it was 2 months later after the insurance company finally came by. So that process, whenever they're trying to do it from a financial end, if they don't understand a good timeline or a good diagram on the order of things,
yes,
it complicates everything.
Yes, there's, instead of A, B, C, D, it's A, F, Z, X,
right,
M.
Right.
So yeah,
symbol formerly known as Prince comes in there every once in a while. I know you do a lot of different things. Right. Tell me what types of situations you address on just as a general stroke.
Well, we do water damage, fire damage, storm damage, and mold remediation are our primary businesses. Okay. And then we'll do certain things. We were in the we were in the waterproofing business at one time, but I've gotten a little away from that because that's a very specialized skill that you need specialized people in, and I have found better people that know what they're doing in that department.
Yeah.
So I prefer to bring in professionals whenever possible. I've done meth lab cleanups. I've done a couple, unfortunately, done some, for lack of a better word, dead body cleanup.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But I'm not in those industries anymore.
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah.
So you mainly stick on those top four then?
Yeah, the big ones.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good to know. I don't think we've ever talked about that, so I wondered about that, honestly.
Yeah.
And so tell me, as it relates to, we don't normally deal with fire scenarios on our end. I have been called in to look at air quality as it relates to that. But tell me what it looks like on because we're dealing with so many things other than the damage that's there, the chemicals, the off-gassing that's residual and now getting permeated into other materials, and the water from them putting out the fire. Like there's so many different elements to that. Tell us what a fire loss situation looks like as far as how you assess that.
Well, I mean, the good thing about our history was really when I got into this, I was really mostly into mold and water. But we got into fire because the cleaning technique for mold is just the same as it is for fire. You're basically going in and scrubbing everything with a toothbrush.
Yeah.
So we go in, assess the situation. The biggest thing that I'm always concerned about is what the smoke got behind. So I really worry about it getting into the attic, getting in behind other walls, because then let's say the fire happens in October, we get it cleaned, and then June, July, August roll in, and the humidity and the heat and the oppressive nature, and then people are calling up going, why does this one closet smell like smoke still?
Right. So
that's the parts that, really digging in and investigating is so important in this work. But at the same time, you also have to be leery about, in fires, damaging too much, because it's such a balance. We serve so many masters in this industry. We have to service the insurance companies,
right,
and they're only getting harder and harder to deal with. Every year, it seems like they get more difficult.
Right.
Then we have the client who wants their house back together. I mean, here's the thing that's crazy. When you go, you know what, I want a new kitchen, I want a new bathroom. You're excited about that. You want to do that. You take your time, you interview people, you get a budget, and then when something like this happens, you have no plans for it.
Right.
And you're completely caught off guard.
Yeah.
You have no idea how much this is going to cost. You are displaced. I mean, it's awful.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it's a different kind of industry. So I mean, when working with people in that capacity. So
one thing I know we share has to do with, we have a certain level of empathy that we have for the client. We're there to serve them, right?
Yes.
And we're both about healthy homes. I know because we've had extensive talks about that. How we do that is everything. But sometimes we're thrown in the mix on an emergency situation like that, and it's like, okay, we have to mitigate that problem, do it in the right order, in the right way, deal with all the emotions, the finances, and sometimes other contractors, getting involved with that process, whether it's, electrical or mechanical or roofers, things like that dictate sometimes your timeline.
Absolutely.
So, and we'll probably get in the weeds on that here in a bit, but the other thing that I think is important in this is to differentiate. Tell me how you differentiate, like, the difference between just, the removal of the smoke and the cleaning, and at what point do you start talk about removal of the materials, and then encapsulation of the materials? Because really those are your three options, and you usually clean, right, and remove first.
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me what that looks like.
Well, I mean, again, it's so. Let's just use a fire that happened in a kitchen.
Yeah.
Let's say a young lady was boiling nipples for baby bottles, and she fell asleep. She's exhausted, newborn baby, and she takes out the kitchen.
Yeah.
The water boils down, the nipples catch on fire.
Right.
They're plasticky.
Right.
So
Right.
we've got all that all over the place. So, and let's say that the kitchen took a pretty direct hit.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go in and basically just gut the kitchen. It's gone.
Yeah.
Just because it's just coated. And not only is it coated in smoke, but it's also coated in whatever the nipples are made out of.
Yeah.
So, some sort of,
Yeah, it's chemical at that point. Yeah, it's
that's
toxic.
right.
Yeah.
Toxic. So we go in, do all that. Now, what if the HVAC system was on during all this, which it is almost every time?
That's the wild card in in all these things. It's the HVAC.
So boom, it gets picked up, and guess what? It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's on everything.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
And so everything's got to be packed out. Everything's got to be cleaned. Everything's got to be scrubbed. But we gut until we feel like we got to where it only is on the surfaces. And encapsulation's okay, but to me, encapsulation's ketchup. I'm just trying to cover up something. I'm more of a let's get this thing clean. When I walk in here, when I'm done cleaning this, I really don't want to smell any smoke.
Yeah.
I really don't. Now, look, is there some places that we just can't get to? There are little nooks and crannies in a house that are just impossible to reach.
Yeah.
So I get that. But, man, like I said, to me, encapsulation is lazy and ketchup.
Correct. I see that stuff all the time
sure
on the
you do.
mold industry, and usually it's from restoration guys that just want the quick and easy way out.
Man, look, labor is so hard right now. Let's be honest with everybody.
Yeah.
This is we're not curing cancer here. At the end of the day, we're scrubbing. I mean, that's it. People ask me, what does it take to be a remediator? I put my right arm up and act like I'm waving at someone. And I say, put a hand sander in here, put a vacuum cleaner in here, put a paper towel in here with some cleaning agent on it, whatever we're trying to clean up. That's what being a remediator is. So
Wax on, wax off.
Wax on, wax off. That's
right.
exactly right.
Yep.
And, that is hard to find because here's the truth. What we do is, and I have to look at it this way just because this is how I'm programmed. It's an art form. I mean, we're going in there and we're removing this. You have to be skilled. Just because I'm waving my hand at you doesn't mean it's simple. It's tedious. It's detailed. It's getting into the nooks and crannies and as best you can. And then selling that to a bunch of people that have to believe it.
Yeah.
Because here's the other thing. We only do things one way. I do not let my people do things anything other than the way we do it because at the end of the day, people are lazy and they will choose the easiest path.
Yeah.
And this is not the easiest path. This is a detailed path. And it's hard to convey that to people nowadays. It's hard to find people that want to do that these days. And so I understand, man, when you're a guy that's just trying to get your job done and you want to spray it down with some ketchup, because you got to keep moving.
Yeah.
I get that. There's a place for everybody in this world, but that's not me, and that's not how I'm ever going to do things because I'm putting my name and my reputation on every job.
And that's why he's here. So if you have a contractor that doesn't have that mindset and integrity in what they're doing, they're not certified in what they're doing, they're not insured for what they're doing, they don't have proper recommendations. Other than just being the cheapest guy in town, like anybody that's good is not going to be cheap, right? But when we're dealing with health and we're dealing with standards of practice that we need to follow so that we can ensure a process, and in some cases when I come in, it's like a validation of that.
That's right.
That the whole process works. The process works as long as somebody has the integrity to follow one. Mm-hmm. That is set by national standards and guidelines. If your state like ours is not regulated for a lot of this stuff, it gets dicey, and you're just going to get a contractor to sell you on something. And if they don't have that kind of mindset, you've got the wrong guy. So,
and be very fearful of fear mongers.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is what most guys are doing. They just come in, they scare you to death. They make you think the kids are, you're killing the kids. They make you think that you are a bad parent because there's some problem, and you're like, just fix it.
Yeah, and they're sales based.
Oh,
I mean, they make their commission off of making you feel as bad as possible till they get that money. You sign right here, and then they make their money. If you're commission based, it's already a conflict of interest there.
I think it is. With me, because I own the company, I have the luxury, and let me say that again, the luxury of telling you the truth.
Yeah.
I'm not here to sell anything. I don't have a boss looking over my shoulder saying, hey, Don, your sales are down.
Yeah. We need our money. Go out there and go get it.
Right. And I do believe that is what motivates most of the people in our business is they think, and they also think there's an open checkbook with insurance companies.
Right.
Which is a big mistake also.
Yeah, that's a delicate balancing act with all that. This kind of leads me into, let's talk about water laws.
Okay.
As an example, I know we've dealt with each other on several different jobs. Tell me what it looks like, and this is where timing is an issue, right? Give me the delineation between restoration and remediation, because at the end of the day, we always promote the more time it has to be wet, the higher chance you're going to have growth, right? It's just a big chia pet, like waiting to sprout, right? So the idea is that from a timeline standpoint is important, but again, we get into the how and the who and the what, but mainly the how. So let's talk about that.
Well, okay, so since we're talking about water and we're talking about remediation, restoration, real quickly, just when people call me up and they say, I have a mold problem, for example, I always say, you don't have a mold problem. You have a water problem. Solve your water issues, you solve your mold issues. So I'm always looking for the water. Always.
It's always water.
It's always water.
Always.
It always is. And you got to remember, water comes in many forms. It's physical water, evaporated water, high relative humidity, because we live in Nashville.
Hello.
Yeah, it's the worst. And all these things can contribute to mold growth or water damage in a house. Because, if we're going to talk about water, you're going to be talking about mold. They're just one and the same. So with regards to water damages, look, we're building crazy, right? This town especially. I mean, this town was like 180,000 people in 1980. And now look at it. We had to bring in all this stuff from all these different places. And a lot of it was not made up to good standards because we're slapping everything together as fast as we can.
Right.
We're not, there's no proper flashing anymore. The pipes and all the fasteners, everything, they're just as cheap as they can be. And you've got people that got the job because they were the cheapest person possible.
Because everybody's in a hurry.
Everyone's in a hurry.
Yeah.
Everyone's in a hurry. And then, boom, you have a water damage because, or just life. Billy wakes up at 2 a.m. He's 6 and he takes G.I. Joe with him.
Right.
And he goes, I wonder if G.I. Joe will swim out to sea and will flush G.I. Joe at 2 a.m. And, next morning there's a waterfall going through the house.
Just to date ourselves, G.I. Joe, for you younger kids, is basically a doll, but like it's a little army guy, right, that kids used to have back in the day, and they would do this very thing, and then you get a flood. So, yeah we're older. It's the gray hair.
Yes.
I love that reference.
Yeah. So it happens. I mean, all these things happen. I'll tell you what, I wouldn't own an ice maker. I mean, I wouldn't.
They always fail.
They always fail.
Always.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
Skylights.
I was just going to say, just like skylights.
Skylights.
Same thing. They always leak.
They always leak.
Yeah.
There's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
And so there's all this stuff that can happen. And now with all the construction, man, we are seeing some brutal things like flashing on the sides of these tall and skinnies, for example, or the parapet wall hasn't been sealed correctly and water's been coming down the backside and they don't know it until one morning they come downstairs and their cabinets are a foot off the wall. They're just hanging by a thread.
Yeah.
And all the plates are, something comes crashing down, and it's all the plates and glassware are now all out of the cabinets.
Let's talk about that. When you run into a situation where you know it's been happening for a while, now we start to cross that line to say, hey, now we're dealing with, there's going to be growth.
Oh, it's rot.
Right. Oh, yeah, if not worse. Right.
Rot.
So, like, how do we deal with that? Because you have to do both. A, you got to stop the bleeding.
Totally.
You got to get to the source, like where did it come from? How did it happen? Blah, blah, blah. And that means roofer gets involved, whoever needs to get involved with that process. Sometimes the brick, it's coming through the brick. I've seen that.
Absolutely.
Which is more complicated. But you got to expose that. You got to contain it. Tell me, you got to dry it. You got to, all these things.
Yeah, and there insult to injury, who's paying for it?
Right.
I mean, because the house is, let's say it's 18 months old, 2 years old. It's been happening day one.
What's the source?
Insurance ain't going to cover that.
No.
And, and you're talking about people's largest assets, right? The average American.
Yeah.
And we're messing with that really hard.
Yeah.
So, man, it's all hands on deck. You got to first things first. You got to solve the water intrusion issue.
Source control, always.
Always number one.
Yeah.
Because I can't do anything else. I can't save the ship if I don't stop it from sinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me plug the holes first.
Right.
That's first and foremost. Then let me scoop out all this water.
Well, and sometimes we don't know where all the holes are until we expose it, but that goes to containment.
Trust me, that's the truth.
Yeah.
And here's like just the other day, we have all this mold behind this wall, and I'm like, what's going on here? And it's a house that was built in 1920, right?
Yeah.
Well, all that rain that came in the other day, client calls, goes, hey, I figured out where the water's coming in. And he sends me a video, and it's just pouring through the wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, oh, thank God we had this open.
Which is where we get the drainage and the hydrostatic pressure and these other specialties now.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are all things that have to be addressed. And here's the truth. It's more than one thing. I mean, if you're lucky, it's one thing.
I tell everybody there's no silver bullet to this, both from a diagnostic end and from a solutions end.
Yes.
Other than getting to the sources, because sometimes it's several people getting involved, to our point. But then it's like, okay, now how do we be preventative? That means there's other people getting involved. How good do you want it at that point if you're doing improvements? Like how far you want to go with this?
Yeah.
Because there's all of these other elements to this. The house is basically an ecosystem with mechanical and structural and electrical systems making everything work. But at the end of the day, like from an environmental perspective, we got to make it healthy. And if there's water, we got to get to that source first, but it's going to affect – everything affects everything else. The HVAC, again, is always the wild card with that.
Always. And, because this is the truth. How often do you get these calls from people that say, hey, I've not been feeling well. And I'm like, okay, do we have any water markings? Because, here's the truth. Water can hide. Now, it can hide behind walls.
Oh, sure.
But it's not – but look, it usually will find an outlet into the house. It'll find a flat surface. It only needs a 1/16 of an inch to roll. So, and it manifests itself in, and it always boggles my mind where people go, oh yeah, this floor's been a little uneven for the last couple months. Oh, just
all of a sudden, just got uneven for 2 months.
I mean, you haven't noticed that. Okay. Or they'll say, this closet smells funny because, a lot of the plumbing and electrical and everything in the house goes up through the
chases and
everything. So there's so many places for water to sneak in, but I'm always like, is there any curdling? Is there any baseboards pulling away? Are the hardwoods cupped? Or is there a brown stain on the ceiling? There's something,
visible signs.
Yeah. Now, granted, that one we talked about a little earlier, they didn't know there was a problem until the cabinets came off the wall. But that is extreme.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely
extreme.
Let's move on to flooding.
Okay.
And we'll kind of like finish with that because it's mainly crawl spaces and basements that we'll deal with. Here, it's more crawl spaces than anything.
True.
Unless it's a commercial application or you've got a major roof leak or something like that. We're dealing with different types of water. Tell me about the different types of categories of, category 1, 2, 3, however you want to categorize it.
Look,
for
if it's
gray
flood,
or black water.
if it's flood water, if it's coming from the outside,
Yeah.
it's gone. Everything's gone, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because the water is treated with a ton of chemicals.
Yeah.
Just from whatever you use to fertilize, whatever your neighbor used to kill all the weeds, and whoever used it 5 miles down the road.
Yeah.
Which you have no idea.
Yeah.
Every dead animal between here and there, every animal that went to the restroom, including humans.
So we're talking about chemical, we're talking about fungal, and we're talking about bacterial.
Oh, we're talking about the whole thing.
The whole gamut.
It's nasty.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. If you have a wall down there in your basement, if you say you live here in Nashville and you have a basement, and you have a very good chance of flooding recently because we had some pretty bad water come in. I think we had 7 inches come in 18 hours.
Yeah.
I cut 4 feet up, and I really don't care how much water came in. I mean, if it was only a couple inches, then I'm only going to cut, but I'm still going to cut either 2 or 4 feet.
Tell me why.
Well, because one,
what's the difference?
Well, I mean, between 2 and 4 feet.
Yeah, I mean, other than the actual measurement.
Right. If it's a foot or taller, I'm going. Well, for starters, people that tell you that water won't run uphill don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Paper wicks up.
Capillary action.
Yeah, just goes straight up.
Yep.
And I don't want to deal with that. I'm like, so if it's a couple inches or less, 6 inches or less, I'll probably go up 2 feet. But if it's more than that, I'm going up 4.
Yeah.
And but it also makes the putback easier.
Yeah, because you're not cutting anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in our side, on the mold side, what we always tell people too is like, okay, now you need a lot of time and concentration. Now in a flood situation, you have concentration. It's just a matter of how much time.
That's right.
Before it dries. But we tell people the standards call for 4 feet because if we start to get into mycotoxin related molds, we're dealing with, mainly Stachy or Cotomium and a lot of Aspergillus. Once we get into that and it's of any concentration, the standards call for 4 foot, right?
Right.
Which is why I talk to the mold guys all the time about this, even if they don't do restoration. It's like if you see and it turns out to be this type, now we're going 4 feet because that's what it calls for.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why type matters. There's a lot of arguments about what I do as it relates to PRVs or which is a remediation verification. Basically, we're testing on the backside of that. But there are so many arguments in the community about how that should work, right?
Absolutely.
And there are standards out there that we go by, national standards. And so where you, on your end, you're going by flood standards, it's like, listen, if it's going to be moving, we got to get the 4 feet. And that kind of eliminates that whole argument anyway.
I agree.
So now you're not dealing with it in the first place, which just, before it even is an issue, why not just do it?
Right. And it's sheetrock and paint at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's cheaper.
It is. It's so much cheaper.
Yeah. It's preventative for me. So when I come in and I'm like, all they did was this, because I've seen so many jobs where they just cut, we did a flood cut.
Yeah.
And really it's kind of like a 2 foot minimum standard.
Without question.
Unless it's worse, right? So when I go back, I can't tell you how many times I've done some testing on the drywall that was remaining, and they may have done it all great, but I have this here, and it's there. Now you got to go up the other 2 feet. Why come back?
Why come back?
Why? So yeah.
We could talk about this all day.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, which is why we're here.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody. Just a brief overview on a few different categories from the man, Don Knarr. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.